Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake lie or imagination. Just like most of the modern scientists say mythology is a study of ancient prehistoric work, but they don't put any resources to disprove mythology or to prove mythology. Now, we coined the term Sattology, where we give ample proof, astronomical, astrological, archaeological, and many proofs to connect the popular culture of Veda to the history of the world. I have a very special guest today. He's an Acharya, Muni, Rishi, Pracharak. Some people may confuse what is Pracharak. And a preacher and also a scientific researcher. So let us welcome Sri Nilesh Nilkant Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya and very happy to be here with you as usual, as always.
So Nilesh, today everybody uses science word. The demagogues use science to promote their demagoguery. Fake philosophers use science to prove their philosophy. In fact, it's so amazing that the stream or the discipline of psychiatry, which is a philosophical work totally, they use science to prove the cure the mind's problems, but they don't know where the mind exists. Like if I ask a psychiatrist where does the mind exist, he will say no. So if he doesn't know, so then what are you curing? And so if I can ask you where is your mind, and he says I don't know where my mind is, that means you are a mindless person. So like on all sides people are just doing discourses and lectures without knowing where the mind is. So can you like throw some light on what is the real scientific temperament? Because without acknowledging these things, where does the science go?
Right. No, great point. Great question. At its base, what you will find, Aditya is that take even something very simple like mind. People would imagine everyone talks of having a mind. Everyone has a mind. It says, my mind doesn't work like that. And people will use the word, but it's like my car doesn't work like that. But you can show your car and you may able to tell why your car doesn't work like that. People will not able to show the mind. If you want to make it even tougher, you can say, well, do you know, like somebody said, that in a Indian Tattvajnan Darshana, people have said, just like outside we have the Panchendriya, like the five Indriya, five senses. Internally, we have like a Antakarana or Chatushkarana or whatever you want to call it, Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar. And the person would be like totally like totally like confused and would wonder, what are you talking? So we talk about this, we think we know it, and that's also true about the Atmadnyan. So actually trying to understand outside world is also part of Atmadnyan, like trying to understand yourself because you are part of it, and to realize that there is no difference. In fact, that's why you see what you call the Uttama Bhakta, Bhagavad Bhakta, but among those like Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama, or Bhagavatottama, Bhagavatottama, the Uttam Bhakta is like doesn't see any difference, right? So that's there. But even if we want to, even if we let's say bring it to very simple things, because if I talk mind, people will or you ask me about mind, I will not able to give you the answer. But people will say, oh, okay, that's you just chose deliberately a subject that people cannot easily answer or not easily able to perceive. But let's take just as an example, like we're talking the scientific temperament, and that word is very loosely, crudely used everywhere around the world, but in Indian context, like the Constitution talks about scientific temperament. Like those people who blabber these words, like randomly pick any one of them, like you see them on the TVs, writing in newspapers, in government positions. I mean, there are like over last many years, there are government sarkari scientist babus. Okay, like yeah, of course they have the PhD, they will claim something doing in theoretical physics, I mean some subject. And again, I'm not talking of the exceptionally amazing individuals, I'm not talking of them, but there are sarkari babus. And I'll give you specific examples. But before I come to that, take simple terms like mass, and I'll miss some, but mass, energy, time, what else would be like a speed, like how the motion, like, so not speed, motion, because speed is related to motion, but why motion exists, what is motion, what is time, what is mass, what is yeah, I mean, I think I said all of those. Now what happens is people would say, what do you mean, like time everyone knows, just like a mind, Aditya ji. Mass, yeah, everyone knows. I mean, we have a decent sense of, if you see 10 apples sitting here versus one apple, you would able to say, oh yeah, the mass of these 10 apples is going to be a lot more than this one apple, or possibly 10 times. You say that's fine, but what is mass, you know and actually there are no answers, because you start looking for it, cutting. Great Nobel laureate scientists have said, um, I'm not getting the name right now, but he said, I went in the search of atoms. This is a very old quote, like at least 30 plus years old quote of his. I went looking, searching for atoms, and then I went searching for atoms, I went into electrons and protons and neutrons, and finally, the statement says, finally the whole thing basically slipped through my fingers. Okay, that is a quote of a great Nobel laureate. So actually, that is a Maya, by the way. And of course, the question then is, what is Maya? Well, Yantram Udani Maya, yeah, we see the output, we see the outcome of a Maya, but the Maya itself, by the nature itself, it's a mystery. The point I want to make it is, if you try to go to fundamental aspects of some things that we take for granted, we presume that we know them, such as simple as simple sounding as mass, as time, as energy, as motion, and we don't understand it. Some of the philosophical problems in terms of understanding the ultimate principle, God, Bhagwan, you know, have actually come from these. I mean, that through the Tattvajnan, the what we call the Paroksha Jnan is, and that's why we need Shraddha and why we need a guru, because these are not to be perceived at the level or with the available science and technology at our disposal. Okay, so that's one aspect. I want to stop on that answer. But what I will tell you is that people will. So I want to stop there. So let me get back to you. See if you have any other question. I wanted to give one example of the Sarkari scientific babus. Okay. And they may sound very scientific, but they are extremely boorish and dogmatic. And I'll give you one example, which is not my area of expertise, but you have talked to Ashwini. Ashwini's area of expertise, and I'll tell you, we are doing with our limited abilities and resources, we are doing lots of experiments, and I'll tell you what amazing results we find. And we know the limitations of it too, but I'll tell you that about any science experiment in the lab as well. But back to you first.
See, the thing is, most of the scientific experiments are done under assumptions and under ideal conditions. So somebody was telling me 400 million years ago, there were giant mushrooms on the earth.
Hmm.
And there's a beautiful picture also somebody created,
Hmm.
again, an imagination assumption. That so if they don't believe that the earth did not exist 4000 BC, then
Hmm.
what about 400 million years back? Because the modern science or archaeologists say that earth was not there. Europeans say that earth did not exist before 4000 BC. So how did giant mushrooms came 400 million years back? Now, assumptions. Now, again, assumptions and extrapolations or interpolations of assumptions.
Yeah.
And there is a very classic uh, thing on the word assume is making an ass of you and me is assume. So, you know, you can have hypotheses. I agree with you. We are all scientists. You are an engineer. I'm engineer. So we can make hypothesis and prove it right or wrong. But when you
Correct.
contrarily prove the evidence to be that, okay, on one thing you're saying 400 million years back, another thing you're saying 4000 BC, nothing was there. So now who is true? So if you take either of the assumptions, hypothesis, then probably both are proved wrong.
Yeah.
So what is your view on this contradicting hypothesis and contradicting assumptions?
Right. So what happens is at any given time, like say everything begins with solving a specific tough problem. Again, not many. I mention this because not many people understand it. Uh, give you an example. Uh, I have, I would say, in the last about, well, actually longer, but just from my memory, I would say last 10 years or so. Uh, I can go back 20 years, but that doesn't matter. I would have talked to, say, hundreds of people who are or who were at that time doing PhDs, okay, in America, Canada, sometime Europe, depends, but mostly in the developed world. And it is surprising. And frankly, I'm not blaming them, guys. I mean, blaming them because I will tell you when I was doing my master's, uh, I figured out what problem I'm trying to solve, or what problem my professor had in mind for me to work on as I evolved through my during the master's degree. Now, many people will even not have that opportunity, because when I say they don't have opportunity, they don't take the opportunity. Many people are very happy just doing even a course-based masters. And I say, why even bother doing it? But that's a different story. Well, there are some courses like my MBAs and so on. In fact, in the MBA thing, I was wondering like when is the real stuff coming, and by that time the whole course was over. But and I learned a lot of things, but I'm saying, the learned was in the ways of the world, not so much from any methodical or scientific perspective. But back to this now, in the last 6 years or so, I came in contact with the indologist. Now, I was fortunate, although I was doing what the generic world will outside world will call it indology for last 30 plus years. I came in contact with indologists only in the last 6 years, okay, post 2016. And what I found was just totally like, I just said, what is this world? I mean, and people are so happy in the sense, in a foolish way, happy, I'm saying. In their ignorance, they are happy. I shouldn't use the word happy. People are on a high. Happy would be a bad word. People are on their high of doing nothing, knowing nothing, and pretending to know everything about that subject. I came across many academics in the last 6 years, again, limited to Indology fields or many of the humanities field, anthropology, and so on. And I said, what do you do? So anytime I would ask a question, so somebody does a PhD, somebody is a professor with 20 students in Indology, and I would say, okay, so what is the key objective of your group? Or what are some of the some of the tough problems you are dealing with? And they would just look at me like, which planet did I come from? Did I just return from Mars or something? They could not make any connection with it. So this is a basic problem. So assumptions is nothing wrong with it. As you said, we make a hypothesis. It's like in solving a mathematical problem, saying let X be the answer, and then you are, say, solving a quadratic equation, So therefore, in order to solve the quadratic equation, you are putting that X, and therefore X square minus 2X plus 3, whatever, equal to 0. And then you are solving. Nothing wrong with it. So that's fine. But let me address something else. Actually, I wanted to say this. That I mentioned. There are in India Sarkari babus, okay, Sarkari scientist babus, holding important positions. Not only they hold the important position, but they almost, this happens in many fields, they have almost created this moat around them. Like only person who is equally dogmatic and willing to listen to this particular individual, let's say, and there are many such groups, only that person can get in, into the so-called scientific stream. Now, there, let me also add, I'm aware of them. There are exceptions, and there are a few, but very extremely brilliant and extremely scientific people, okay, extremely smart people trying to turn this around. Okay, so again, I will not mention names on either side, but just to give you an example of that dogmatic, the dogma in science, okay. There is, I mean, there may be many, but at least I'm aware of one individual. Anytime you hear the word astrology, okay, the Phala Jyotish, and I have I mean, other than the Jyotish part, like, I can create a horoscope by hand, just the first part, there are many layers of horoscope you create. I can create the first one. That's because Ashwini taught me how to do it. And softwares, of course, do it very seamlessly. So it's not like a great thing anymore. I mean, the creation of horoscope. But now I don't know what the number is, Ashwini's total data number. The data that we study, because we don't study all the data points we need into certain range or whatnot, like, because we need to know enough of that individual outside they're doing the horoscope study. So if she's doing for some client and she doesn't know anything about that client before, after, and so on, then we don't include that data point, because it's like, say, Aditya ji, if I'm just doing yours, I wouldn't, that's not of use to me. But if I have an opportunity, I meaning Ashwini and myself, to be in touch with you for, say, next 10 years, okay? Or we happen to know you for the last 20, 30 years, and we happen to do your horoscope, we meaning Ashwini does horoscope, then it becomes beneficial, because we already know something about you. So even like, say, some of my family members that Ashwini even may not know, uh, or vice versa, then like we predict something, or her horoscope, I mean, certain thing will predict something, and then we see how much it matches, because there is that calibration is also required to be done, and this is a calibration of one. But let me come back to that point. So when it comes to astrology, this particular individual is sort of a revered in Indian context, and I don't know for what. In fact, I will tell you, one time somebody was doing some summer studies with this individual, and was saying, oh wow, I'm so impressed that I mean, so fortunate that I get a chance to work with this individual during the summer. And this question I have asked many. So I asked that individual girl, she was on the Facebook or somewhere. I said, hey, would you be kind enough to, I mean, I'm so glad you are excited to work with this individual during the summer, and you consider yourself so fortunate. Would you just give me a bulleted list of what's the great contribution of this individual? One Sarkari scientist Babu, I'm saying. And do you know what, Aditya, this girl did? I mean, again, she was, I think, she connected with me. I don't know how it came. She blocked me just for asking this question. And do you know what the reality is? Because if somebody tries to bulleted point give the list of what this Sarkari Babu's contribution, they will fail. I mean, they will list something, but then I will have a next follow-up question to that, and they are going to fail in less than 3 steps. The point I'm saying is, this same individual, anytime he will hear the word astrology, he will just jump on it, write another blabbering article somewhere, maybe talk about it. And my point is, in the astrology side, now granted, there are people who will make tall claims, but at least the few that I know, like one of my uncles, so he's a astrologer, but I could never understand much from him. He wouldn't talk much. Now Ashwini, I ask her and I like grill her on certain things, I mean, literally, like, think of like a court trial or something. So what is this? And she'll say, I don't know that. I mean, I follow the formula. But, and Jeffrey Armstrong is another one, wonderful astrologer. And I asked him, actually, we have done some very interesting study, just that we are, separated by time, 3-hour difference, and many other commitments each of us have. I would have loved to do many double blind experiments, but I do with limited ability with Ashwini and, some of the things we do. My point is, her, say, for example, her accuracy rate is 90% plus, and 90% accuracy is a very conservative number. Now, that's very impressive. We have to keep in mind that some of the predictions are not exactly like, somebody says, oh, will I get the job? And it's not like, well, yeah, you're going to get a job with this company on 3rd of May 2023. No, the prediction is never like that. Okay. I mean, we would love to have a prediction like this, but how it works in the finance world. My point is, instead of creating very ingenious, interesting experiments like this, what we are doing, and with no support of any kind from anyone, it takes a lot of effort, lot of money, a lot of time. I mean, just documentation, convincing people to participate. It takes a lot. instead of those people who have access in the government machinery, they are leading certain institutes. Instead of doing that study, they will write a utterly childish blabbering article, such as, like, one time, this astrology related thing, the person wrote, can you look at the horoscope and predict the gender of a person? Okay. I mean, that's how stupid is that, by the way? I mean, by the way, before calling it stupid, I don't know if astrologers are capable of predicting that. So I asked few, including Ashwini, I said, hey, does this happen? I mean, she said, no. Okay. Now you say, oh, how come if you cannot predict the gender, then what's the use of it? I mean, how stupid is that? It's like saying, just look at the cholesterol count, or some such, bodily measurement or height of a person, and say, hey, can you tell from the height whether the gender? I mean, that's stupid. That particular measurement is not capable of giving you what you want, right? Just like, say here, like we look at that, want to know something about the timing, we want to know about the geographical location. If you want to know whether the certain geographical location mentioned in Ramayana is correct or not, no matter how many star positions you look at, and if it has nothing to do with that location, it's not going to help you. Now, stars will tell you when, but they may not tell you where, I mean, those kind of things. So actually, that you ask that, I'm going to insert here one uh, what do you call a cartoon, and I'll show you. And that cartoon came from you, by the way. But I will share that with you and show you how people, they may use the word science, or they may receive the word science, but how blind, how dogmatic, and how fallacious the understanding is. They are into fallacy. You authority fallacy. Okay, or just the word science is also has become an authority. It has created its, science has become a god, science has become a dogma. Okay, just you use the word science somewhere, people will fall for it, but he has proved it scientifically. That's what they will say. Anyways, so you have something else before I begin?
No, we can begin. I
Okay.
just want to say
So, by
one.
the way, what I want to share is a very interesting subject. Again, very relevant here for North America, but I would say any locations per se. And so the topic is this. This came up. I will not give the bigger background, but somebody just contacted me a couple of days ago. I feel good, Aditya, because you know what this person said. So it was in his family in America, in the central time zone, and he was having questions with his relatives and young generation. Very impressive, by the way, that the young generation was wondering why there is a difference of Tithi. Tithi is what? A lunar day designation. By the way, this can also go into the magic and the mystery of the ancient Indian astronomy. Nothing superficial, nothing superfluous. Everything is as required, nothing more, nothing less. And the Tithi, the lunar Tithi, is one such concept which doesn't exist. I mean, it exists in Babylonians and all of that, but what is Babylonia? That those are post Mahabharata migrations. The Indians going there with just a verbal knowledge and trying to recreate their calendar. Just like suppose you and me sit here without knowing a panchang, try to create a panchang for America. It would be like that. That's what Mesopotamians and Sumerians did. But otherwise, no, rest of the world, some of the people understand a generic moon-based calendar, but they don't have this finesse about the Tithi, the beginning of a Tithi and ending of a Tithi. Just fascinating. I mean, how mathematically accurate.
One thing
Those,
I'll say, that
yeah.
in the solar calendar, India is 13 and a half hours ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But in the lunar calendar, Tithi comes before. That's
Correct. And but see, still, I mean, you said what you said is correct, but that will not be enough for people to understand why still Tithi comes ahead here.
correct.
It's not that the lunar calendar per se is ahead. It depends on the location, right? So I'm going to make, right. It's a location specific. Like the Tithi is a location specific, where what you say, the recognition of a Tithi. I'll get there. The recognition of a Tithi is location specific, whereas the actual Tithi is global in nature. Okay, but so anyways, the question came here, and I initially thought, hey, this is something simple and people will understand it, but something very relevant, I would say, to people of any age group. Okay, young and old, people who follow certain tithis, for people who follow vrata, and so on and so forth. What we are not going to look at today, or even otherwise, is that why one should follow a tithi. I mean, there is a good explanation for that, but the explanation remains at a shraddha and what you call paroksha jnana level. At some point, you have to take it with a shraddha, because this is the empirical data. Just like people asking in astrology, so how does this laws work? I mean, I have not people, I have asked this to Ashwini. I said, how does these laws work? She said, I don't know. But the great sages, in a very purely empirical fashion, and there may be many other non-empirical logic and insights and samadhi, whatever they might have used, this remains our guess. But the laws work, which is like saying, Adityaji, if you are driving on the road, and like when you see the yellow light, you come to a stop because you can stop safely. And what you notice now, the light turns red, and you find everyone who's coming from your side and even the opposite side who also have a red signal, they all come to a stop. And then the green light turns on the other side, and the other folks start going. Nobody is talking to each other. And if somebody, some innocent person says, okay, so who manages this light? Of course, you'll say, hey, they're automatically managed, or it is by the city, and so on and so forth. But the system works. You don't know exactly an individual who does that, manage that. Astrology laws are kind of like that. I mean, they are a wealth of thousands and thousands of years of empirical observations. Now, some scientists, even in their own area, they are totally hodgepodge. Okay. I mean, I have actually traced them, tried to track them, saying, guys, tell me what's your contribution. And they will find a way, excuse to run away with the tail between their legs. Okay. I have done this to very famous people. Okay. Do not respond. They do not respond. Their chamchas do not respond, and so on and so forth. But back to this. So we may not know how it works. There are many areas like this. You started with the mind, like, hey, you are going to fix your mind, but you don't know where mind is. You don't know how mind works, but you are trying to fix it. Same thing for time. All of us talk about, hey, let's talk for 40 minutes. But if you go to the what we call epistemological fundamental understanding of time, people don't know. Light, one thing I missed. So I mentioned time, energy, mass, motion. Let me add fifth thing, light. There is a famous quote by another Nobel laureate. I'll just quickly mention it and get into my subject. He said, he said, I am willing, meaning he is willing, not me. I am willing to be put in a prison under the ground, okay, where no ray of light will ever reach, if in return someone tells me what is light. Now, of course, some foolhardy person says, "Oh, I will tell you what is light." I mean, that's nonsensical. This person is studying light, or was studying light for his lifetime. You know the dual nature of light, the particle versus the wave, and it's just so confounding, so confusing. In that context, he was giving this. It's to be understood as a metaphor. The reason Aditya Jai mentioned that is like somebody will write in the comment, "Hey, I can tell you the light," and will give a very useless explanation. Thinking he or she is doing something great. Let's come back to this. So this was a real, very, very serious discussion that was happening. I don't know how many days ago. And something positive I'll tell you, or something interesting, is that this individual, possibly last time I met him in person, was maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like this, right in America. I mean, in just a different time zone from me, and different time zone from you. So he's not there either. And his relatives, whoever asked, and the good thing I feel is, like, finally he said he could understand himself, but he couldn't find a way to explain it. And he said, who can explain this? And I'm happy to tell you, Adityaji, that he said, there is one person. I don't know if he said there is only one person who can do it, but he said there is this one person. I feel confident only he can do it. So he contacted me, and I said, well, I'll put together a few slides and go over it. So I thought we will discuss this. That way, I also know how does this work, and if I need to, fine tune these, I can do it. So, simple question: why does a specific tithi occurs in United States, for example, before it occurs in India? Now, you sort of gave an answer, but let's hold on to that answer. This question, people do find, oh, is that right? I mean, many people even don't deal with a Tithi, so they don't even know that this is a problem or a curiosity. It's a curious thing, or it does not raise their curiosity or jidnyasa, kutuhal, anything, but once they suppose realize, they says, "Oh my God, I didn't know that. Why does a specific tithi occurs in the United States? Oh, I was all along. I was following the calendar that my relatives from India sent it to me or something, and I just follow that. And if it says 25 there, I do that on 25th here. If something says 3rd of the January, I do something on 3rd of January. 14th of January, I do it 14th of January here. But if you are following and if you want to follow per the Tithi, which is a lunar day, I'll explain that in a minute, then you want to do it relative to your location. And that's what we are going to look at. And that's where the question, why does a specific Tithi occurs in United States before it occurs in India? Now, does this happen all the time? Not all the time, but it happens most of the time. Okay, it's like a very common phenomenon. Occasionally, it won't happen like this. So let's look at why that happens. Before we go there, thank you for sending me that cartoon. Okay, so we talked about the science. So I thought I'll just insert this here. What is this? This is a Andhashraddha. Okay, Andhashraddha Nirmulan Samiti should use this poster. Okay, they will only talk about in a very idiotic and stupid fashion about like there is a dogma in any religion or any system. Hinduism is not religion, but in an ordinary language we use the word. Yes, there is a dogmatic attitude. There are any society, any Sanskriti, any civilization. There are things such as Sanskriti, Prakriti, Vikruti. Okay, the things do get twisted. Some folks that's why the Santa Eknaths, we called Karmatata Ati Banda. Okay, Pakhanda, Karmatatha, they enter any society, they needs to be chopped off, those things needs to be removed from the social mindset. That is understood. But other Andhashraddha guys will go after Hindus. They dare not do anything to any Abrahamic faith. Okay, and by the way, I would say my greetings, Merry Christmas to Christians who have for the joy, the greetings for joy and a peace, and on the Christmas Eve, and also, I hope that they spend time. Those who are already enlightened and understand the disastrous aspect of the conversion, okay, the religious conversion. I hope people understand, people spend time. Many people in Aditya in America don't realize the very disastrous effects of conversion around the world. Now, if somebody of their own willing takes to certain study, I mean, I tried to study Bible, I tried to study Old Testament, New Testament, whatnot. People should study. I mean, you have a blue Bible, what is that? The Hindu Bible. People should study. But and on their own, if they find a certain philosophy or philosophical tradition is more suitable for their intelligence, they should take it. No problem with that. But the kind of conversion that is done in a very very demonic fashion, okay, that is disastrous for the world, for humanity, for sustainability, and I hope people realize that. Okay, but Merry Christmas to my Christian friends. Now back to this. So dogma, I was saying, the dogma exists. Abrahamic faith is like, I mean, if you just tell them, let's test the claims, they will say, sorry, we can't, Now, this Andhashraddha Nirmulan Samiti, they will find some simple folks in some parts of India and just try to pull their so-called snobbery and elitism on them. But that's another different subject. The quick cartoon here, I will not explain it. Scientists have discovered it. You just say that, people will believe in anything when you say scientists have discovered it. What's his name? Nietzsche. Okay, Friedrich Nietzsche. He has said, majority will believe in the truth of anything as long as they feel confident that the rest of the majority, meaning other than that individual, majority also believes in that. This is how it, for an ordinary low level of intellect, the things happen. I mean, that's why Shankaracharya has said, Satyanrute dve mithuni krutya vartate lokayatra. The ordinary life, Ordinary life or life of ordinary folks, it's a blend of satya and anruta, truthful things and non-truthful things, the things that have been confirmed, the things that have not been confirmed. It is for this reason people are just going to easily fall into the authority fallacy. Somebody in an important place of power, important institution, director, and they say, oh, whatever he or she is saying must be true. Just like this, you use the word science and people just fall for it. Okay, with that, let's get to the Tithi. Again, we'll not get into the broader perspective of how Tithi came into being. In fact, Adityaji, I'm designing a course. I already have it, the descriptions. I have to go and record it on the basically, let's call it like an introduction of Indian astronomy and the Panchanga system, the Indian Panchang, like that. So there I will cover that in detail. But for our discussion, the Tithi, what is a Tithi? Sun goes around the earth. Again, like people, oh, but I thought, well, if you thought and if you don't understand this statement, sun going around the earth, you've got a problem. Okay, you are not suitable for this Sattology talk. Go read Wikipedia and stuff like that. This is how rubbish, this is how dull people's brain are, Adityaji. Like if you say sun goes around the earth, then they get so damn smart, oh yeah, but I have learned the solar system. No, you have not learned anything. That's why you get stuck with something like this. So earth at the center, and you will see sun goes around the earth over a period of 1 year, 365 days. Okay, so we know that. Now, while it is doing this, what you find is that the moon is going around the earth. Of course, moon is going around the earth is going around the sun, but as seen from the earth, everything is going around the earth. So moon is seen as going around the earth in what? From one nakshatra to the same nakshatra again in 27 days. Again, we are talking average numbers. From one phase to the same phase again, such as Amavasya to Amavasya, full moon day to full moon day in about 30 days. Again, we are using a whole number. Okay. Now, therefore, and the total circle has 360 degrees. So we are calling, therefore, 360 divided by that number 12 that you'll see here, 12 degrees. So if you do that, that comes to 30 tithis. So essentially, the whole lunar complete round, you can say lunar cycle, is divided into 30 tithis. Now the motion comes into the picture. In fact, and I will not go into the problem of a motion, which is a very interesting problem. India solved it in a very unique way. I would say West also tried to solve it in a unique way, and they did solve it, at least at the philosophical level. Unmoved mover is how they solved it. We'll not go into that. So what is happening is when the moon is moving, it's not like sun is steady in one place. Sun is also moving. So let me give you a quick definition of what the Tithi is. Okay. So this is geocentric observation from the earth. Imagine a day of Amavasya. Okay. A no moon day or a new moon day, same thing, which is to say sun and moon. And now we will not see the moon, but it is a day of Amavasya, like as seen from the earth. You will not able to see the moon because moon is exactly near the sun. Okay. So sun is bright. We are not going to see the moon, and moon's position is, it doesn't have to be eclipse, but right at the same longitude. Okay. If people don't know the longitude, they need to go to Google or somewhere and find out what longitude is. Okay. Same position in the sky as seen from the earth. That's our day of Amavasya. This is the end of Amavasya. When sun and moon are at the same longitude, that's the end of Amavasya. And now the new lunar month begins in the Amanta system. Okay, so now what happens is, now the time, the duration, okay, when the sun and moon are together, from that point, like a difference between their longitude is 0, let's say, to a time. So it begins now. Now that's the end of Amavasya. Now the Pratipada, the next Tithi begins. Okay, and I don't know if people can see these things. So next thing begins, and the time it takes for the moon to separate its position from the sun. Remember, sun is also slowly moving, not a lot, but slowly moving, to separate from the sun and create a distance of exactly 12 degrees is the duration of one Tithi. So that will be Pratipada, and I'm going to show that on the next page. Then what happens is, so that's end of Pratipada. Pratipada began right at the when Amavasya ended, Now 12-degree difference, that's the end of Pratipada. Now what happens is, again, they both are moving in the same direction, going eastward, you can say. Now again, moon starts moving, again, meaning it has not stopped, but I'm saying the 12 degree as the 0 point. And now the duration, the time gap from that 12-degree point to additional 12-degree, total of 24 degrees separation between the sun and the moon. So these are the moon phases. So like think of this as a Pratipada, Dvitiya, Tritiya, something like this. So a total separation of 24 degrees, the duration that it takes to go from 12 degree separation to 24 degree separation, that is additional 12 degree separation, is another Tithi, and that time period is called Dvitiya. And then Tritiya, Chaturthi, Panchami, Shashti, Saptami, Ashtami, Navami, and so on. So what is the key takeaway right from there? Okay, the beginning and end of Tithi is global. What I mean by that? When I describe this, I did not say where on the earth. It doesn't matter. I am not talking of Atlanta. I'm not talking of San Diego. I'm not talking of Varanasi. I'm not talking of Ujjain. I'm not talking of London. Because sun and moon, okay, just imagine for a minute, earth has a fixed thing. So sun from earth, doesn't matter which location on the earth, because earth is rotating around itself. So anywhere, whichever location you can say, looking at the sun, yeah, doesn't matter. The location doesn't matter. With respect to the earth, the sun and moon are the same longitude. Okay, that's the Amavasya. So the point I want to say it is that the Tithi, like end of Amavasya, beginning of Amavasya, end of Pratipada, beginning of Pratipada, these are global. Why? Because when sun is separated from the moon by 12 degrees, that duration is one Tithi. Then additional 12 degrees is another Tithi. Additional 12 degrees is another Tithi. And keep in mind, the sun is also moving. So what does that mean? So first sun is moving, you got 12 degree separation. Next time you go for a 24 degree separation. It's a net 24 degree separation, because remember, sun is also moving. So at that point, when you call the next point saying, hey, this is the end of this Tithi, there has to be a separation of 24 degrees between the two moving bodies known as sun and the moon as seen from the earth. But where on the earth, it doesn't matter. In that sense, the first bullet is important. And this is very important, people understand. Now, people can just simply say, Adityaji, like take it on the Shraddha. That's what it happens. Just follow the Druk Panchang calendar that is online, published from Bangalore, and just live your life. How simple life is that? Absolutely. Many people will simply do this. Follow the Druk Panchang for your local location. Just type your location, you will get the Panchang. Follow everything from that Druk Panchang from Bangalore. They have done a tremendous job. Life is good. That is on the Shraddha. Now, many people will just stop there, and which is perfectly fine. But those people cannot come and start arguing with us like, oh, how come the North America gets before and so on. If you want to know that, now you have to go into Pramana and a Pradnya and a Viveka, and that's what we are talking. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to show you in the next one, the recognition, the determination of a Tithi for a given location, whether it is a Chicago, whether it is Dallas, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, whether it's a San Diego, California, Atlanta, Georgia, New York, right? Whichever that place we are talking, the recognition of a Tithi in that location is based on the Tithi at the time of local sunrise. Local sunrise meaning local sunrise time in Atlanta, local sunrise time in New York, local sunrise time in Toronto, local sunrise time in London, and so on. So that's the difference. The actual beginning of a Tithi and end of a Tithi is global. It doesn't matter. It's not for any specific location on the earth. But the recognition or the determination of a Tithi for that particular location, for that particular solar day, like a daytime, is basically depending on the local sunrise. Okay, and what's what to do with local sunrise? We are going to look at that. So this is what we do quickly to just make that what I said before, that 12-degree thing. This is a broad, crude, illustrative picture. So let's say this is the Amavasya day. Sun and moon are on the same line and they are going towards the east. Okay. Now what happens is let's we wait for a time. So now the Amavasya is over, Pratipada begins. And now we wait for a time. The clock starts and we wait for a time until moon separates itself from the position of the sun by 12 degrees. Notice where I'm showing the sun, because sun has also moved. Sun is not stationary either. So net separation of 12 degrees between the moon and the sun, that time duration is the equal to 1 Tithi. And if it is just after Amavasya, then we call that Pratipada. Okay. So we are going to call this, hey, this whole thing is Pratipada, that duration is Pratipada, and now Pratipada ends when moon separates from the sun by 12 degrees. Now I'll tell you something else. So just the same thing repeats. Now both are moving, but now the next thing, the next stop we look for is a net separation of multiple of 12. So in this case, 24, 2 times 12 degrees of separation between the moving sun and the moon. Sun is moving very slowly, like about 1 degree per day, and moon moves about 12 degrees per day approximately. Okay, so then we will call this end of a Dvitiya. So basically, this is if you consider this as a time axis, and it doesn't have to be identical, by the way. So then the time between this and this is Dvitiya. Okay, and we will call this Tritiya, and we will call this Chaturthi, and so on. Now, it so happens, we are not going to go into the causes of it. The motion of the sun on an average, yes, it is 1 degree per day. And the motion of the moon on an average is, yes, about 12 degrees per day. However, in reality, what you find is that's not the case. Okay, they go bit slow, bit faster. Why does that happen? Guys, that's when you need to join my course on Introduction to Indian Astronomy and Indian Calendar. Okay, India's lunisolar calendar that I'm working on. But it happens because of lots of things. And that duration, like the time taken by moon to separate itself from the sun, either 12 degrees or a multiple of 12 degrees, and 12 times 30 will be 360 degree, which means what? At that time, again, the sun and moon would be together. It would be another Amavasya, just like this first position. So the time duration it takes to go through that, create that separation of 12 degrees, like a 1 Tithi, it can run approximately from 19 hours, as I said, on an average 24 hours, like a 1 day, but it can run from 19 hours to 26 hours. Just keep that in mind. The Tithi, a particular Tithi, meaning that time required for moon to separate itself from the sun by 12 degrees or multiple of 12 degrees, can take anywhere from 19 hours to 26 hours. Now keep those numbers in mind with the context of 24 hours is our 1 solar day. Now that's also not exact. Okay, that also changes for location to location. It changes with the season, and see, that's all this thing adds to the question we are trying to answer. So hopefully people get what the Tithi is. Now let's look at the actual things that are happening. For example, in India, and why did I choose Varanasi? Not many people will know this, Adityaji. The Ujjain is in the Indian context or the world context. Until 200 years ago, Ujjain was the prime meridian. Ujjain was the zero longitude of the world. And then British, after 1857's failed attempt to get rid of the colonialist from India, British wanted to really grasp, really wanted to control, and they made all kinds of crazy reforms. But they also, their goal was to, again, there is a wonderful interview. I'll share that with you, Aditya ji, offline. Amazing interview from one Pakistani retired general. Okay, amazing interview. And he says what kind of things they did. And one of the thing was they were now in urgency. After 1857 says, let's extract all the wealth as fast as we can. And that's what they started, but that's a different subject. So my point was, Ujjain was a zero longitude when British finally stole it and took it to London, the Greenwich. But that zero longitude as a Ujjain as a zero longitude, which is there for thousands and thousands of years in India, it is important to realize that there were times when Varanasi was considered equally important for totally different reasons. Still, zero longitude is going through Ujjain, but Varanasi was considered an important point as a reference point for time, and I'll not go into that. That could be a whole 2 hour long talk. So therefore, I chose Varanasi. Varanasi also was a very important place from an astronomy perspective, a geographical place. But let's get back to this Tithi business. So Varanasi, the date we are looking at, very close to where we are, like 23rd December 2022. What was the Tithi in Varanasi? Okay, so in Tithi in Varanasi was Amavasya, that the Amavasya that I referred to. Why was that? The reason is for that is when the sunrise happened in the Varanasi here at 6:40 a.m. That's when the sunrise happened in Varanasi on 23rd of December, just 2 days ago. It's very important. Remember what I said. The actual occurrence of a tithi and how long a tithi lasts is global. It's not with respect to any specific location on the earth. However, a recognition or a determination of a tithi for a specific location, such as New York, London, Atlanta, San Diego, Dallas, Chicago, Mumbai, Delhi, Varanasi, is with respect to the sunrise at that location. So now we are looking at Varanasi, okay, Kashi. So sunrise on 23rd there was at 6:40 a.m. And when that sunrise happened in Varanasi, the global Tithi, remember, so it's a local, we are trying to determine the local Tithi for Varanasi. We look at the sunrise time and we ask the question, right now at this time of sunrise in Varanasi, what is the global Tithi? The answer is Amavasya. The answer is Amavasya, okay? It is that 12 degree leading the sun is coming, sorry, the moon is coming towards the sun and try to attain this longitude of zero, okay, the zero difference. So therefore, on 23rd December, the Tithi of Varanasi is Amavasya, and that day was Friday. Okay, now let me take you to another location, which is what we want to answer the question. Same day, of course, Earth is round, all that, and the day in on the same 23rd December in calendar is going to, for Dallas, is going to come later, because when it was sunrise in Varanasi, it was like close to a evening night here in Dallas, Texas, for example. Okay, but now let's look at the morning of 23rd in Dallas. Okay, what was the sunrise time? 7:27. Remember how we decide the local tithi. If you want to decide the local tithi for Dallas for the day of 23rd, we say, okay, when is the sunrise time? Okay, we find out it's 7:27, 7 hours 27 minutes in the morning, right? At that time, what is the global tithi? And when we go there, the answer is it's the Pratipada. It's not Amavasya. And what happened? Look here, it said, I'm taking you back for a second to Varanasi. The Amavasya Tithi, with respect to the Varanasi local time, it was ending at 3:46 p.m. Okay, the Amavasya was ending at 3:46 p.m., which means what? If you want to look at what was the time here, what would you do? 4:46, 5:46, and about 6:15. It would be 6:15 in the morning in Dallas. That's when the Amavasya ended. But the Dallas sunrise is not happening until 7:27, the 23rd. And when the sunrise did happen in Dallas, the Tithi has already ended, the Amavasya has already ended, and Pratipada has begun. Therefore, since the global Tithi, when Dallas sunrise happened on 23rd was Pratipada, the Tithi of Dallas for 23rd December is Pratipada. And this is a simple answer. So what happened? In India, in Varanasi, on 23rd, the Tithi was Amavasya. And in Dallas on 23rd, although the sunrise happened later, the 23rd came to Dallas later than there. As far as the Tithi is concerned, they already Dallas has a advanced Tithi. It was a Tithi of a Pratipada. In fact, that Pratipada is before Varanasi. Why? Because when Dallas is having a morning, Varanasi is having a night of the previous day, so to say. Okay, so they are going to get their Pratipada later. Okay, about 10, 12 hours later. So this is the answer why Aditya said it in a very brief fashion, like the solar calendar is ahead. When it comes to solar calendar, it is ahead of India's solar calendar. Solar day is ahead of America's solar day. But when it comes to lunar calendar, America's lunar day or lunar Tithi invariably is ahead of India's time. Okay, but whichever way you want to understand, if as long as you understand it, it's good. Okay, so this is the answer to that first question. In fact, this will happen very often. Okay, so for example, again, I'm showing this for another quick Tithi, so you see the consistency of it. So now you go the next day, 24th of December. Okay, which is now already occurred there. So it's the morning times, Varanasi 6:41. We ask the question, what is the global Tithi? The answer is, it is Pratipada. It has happened in Dallas already on the 23rd, the Dallas 23rd, but that's still continuing, right? For about 24 hours, anywhere between 19 to 26 hours. And so when there was a next day sunrise in Varanasi at 6:41, the Tithi was Pratipada. The global Tithi was Pratipada. Therefore, the Tithi of Varanasi for 24th is Pratipada. So therefore, it appears, and it is true, that the Pratipada in Varanasi occurred after it occurred in Dallas. Okay, and that's a very common occurrence. People should understand why that happens. The two principles I said, the Tithi is a global, local determination is very local based on the sunrise time. Okay, now look what it says. Pratipada says up to 12:06 p.m. Varanasi time. Okay, p.m. meaning like afternoon, and then it's going to the next one. So let's so that's how it will go, so Pratipada, Dvitiya, Tritiya, and so on. Now let's repeat the same logic. For example, I want to show you something else, because Aditya ji, this particular group and this individual who asked me, they also had this question. He said, okay, so that's between, say, India and America. What about, say, East Coast and a West Coast? And I said, if you understand this principle of a global Tithi and the very important fact that the Tithi for a local place is determined based on the Tithi at the time of the local sunrise, then you got it. So I'm going to give you example for something else, very similar, but now instead of Varanasi and Dallas, I'm going to show you between, say, Dallas and San Francisco. And we have to have some unique situation. So I deliberately went and selected one, not far from our days, like just in a few days, and people can go and check it. In Dallas on 29th of December, just in a few days, why? Because at the time of sunrise 7:29, the Tithi in the global Tithi was Saptami. Can you hear me, Aditya ji? Because I'm getting a message.
I can hear you, but there was a pause in the middle of your connection.
Because I saw that too, and I was wondering what that. Okay, all right. So the 29th of December, Dallas, at the time of sunrise, it was the Tithi Saptami. Therefore, the Tithi of Dallas on 29th is Saptami. Remember the rule. Whatever is the global Tithi at the time of sunrise at that local location. But something interesting. Sunrise was at 7:29. And just after that, 29, 39, and 49, in less than 20 minutes, something happened. The global Tithi is no longer Saptami. Remember that 12 degree separation or multiples of 12 degree separation, that's it complete for the seventh time, so to say. And now Ashtami has begun. Okay, the next Tithi has begun in less than 20 minutes. Now, what is the effect of that? For example, therefore, on the Tithi of San Francisco for the very same day. I mean, just very same day, I mean, somebody from Dallas to San Francisco, they can fly in a couple of hours. And guess what? They are going to get a different Tithi. So let's look at this. So if we go to same day, 29th, San Francisco, the San Francisco local sunrise is at 7:24. But if you compare that with the Dallas, what does that mean? The 7:24 there, it's a 2 hour difference. So actually in Dallas, that time is 8:24 and 9:24. Sorry, 9:24. Now, if in Dallas it's a 9:24, that means what? The Saptami, the global Tithi is no longer there. We know that it was going to change to Ashtami in less than 20 minutes. So by the time there is a sunrise on the same day in San Francisco, local time 7:24, the Tithi has already changed. The Tithi is global. It has changed from Saptami to Ashtami. So therefore, on 29th, the day is coming very soon, guys. You can check it, local calendars and see, go to the temples and see if the local temple archaka, temple priest are following these calendars, okay? Or they understand this. Don't hold them responsible because the local management may have some different rules. But if you want to follow, this is what you do it. So on 29th in Dallas, the Tithi would be Saptami. In San Francisco or San Diego, the Tithi would be Ashtami. Again, the Tithi is global, but the recognition of a Tithi at a local specific place such as San Francisco, Dallas, Atlanta, San Diego, London, wherever, is based on the sunrise time, and whatever is the Tithi, the global Tithi at the time of the local sunrise, you decide. So that's how good example. So can this happen within America? Of course. In Dallas, on 29th is going to be Saptami. In San Francisco on the same day, not separated by more than 2 hours, is going to be Ashtami. This is not something to be shocked about. Oh my God, what do I do? Nothing. If you want to follow the Tithi, you just understand this. And Druk Panchang is a wonderful source. You can just, the cutouts I'm showing you are from the drukpanchang.com. You can find the specific location of yours. Just type that, type the date, and you know which Tithi it is. Now, I want to show you, Aditya ji, couple of exceptions. Actually, one exception, and then we'll quickly look at the Vruddhi Tithi and Akshaya Tithi. Now, sometime what you will find is that separation of like 2 different days between, say, India and America may or may not happen. Now, that can happen for multiple reasons. If the Tithi extension takes 26 hours, then both India and America, or a particular location in America and particular location in India, will have the same Tithi. That is also possible. But sometimes it happens for some interesting reasons. And one example, Aditya ji, this question comes to me every year, no exception. Okay, Lakshmi Pujan, like with our Diwali day, Lakshmi Pujan, the Amavasya. Oh, and when are you going to do it? What is the time? What is the local temple time? And then somebody from Atlanta will be talking to someone in Houston, or Atlanta talking to somebody in San Diego. And those two people, not you and me, but those people will disagree. Oh, you are doing it today? No, we are going to do it tomorrow, and stuff like that. And why this kind of discussion happens? Many people ask me this question. I thought in this context, it will be a great thing to look at this. Here, it is not only the Tithi that is important for this particular celebration that is done of Lakshmi Pujan, but a specific time of the day is important. And what is that? It is the end of the month of Ashwin. So it is a Ashwin Amavasya. Okay, you can call it. People call by different names. Just pay focus on what I'm saying. At the end of the month of Ashwin, about 15 days after the Ashwin full moon, whatever Amavasya comes, I am calling it Ashwin Amavasya. It doesn't matter what other people call. There is a lot of confusion there. That's what I call Ashwin Amavasya. That is our Deepavali Lakshmi Pujan time. And doesn't matter where you are. So again, remember, the Tithi is global, but at your local location, you want to do Lakshmi Puja in the evening. And that creates a very special situation. So I'm going to explain that to you. So for example, let's take a Lakshmi Pujan of this year. 24th of, now not to confuse with December, by the way, guys, let's go back 2 months approximately. 24th of October was the day of Ashwin Amavasya this year, the day of Lakshmi Pujan. Okay, so that day is there. I'm taking you to Varanasi. And 6:01 in the morning was the what you call the sunrise time. And at that time, I'm saying this is an exception, guys. So pay attention. On that day, at the time of sunrise, the Tithi was Chaturdashi. So Varanasi celebrated this as a Naraka Chaturdashi also. Okay, Varanasi celebrated this as a Naraka Chaturdashi. But keep in mind that the Amavasya, the Lakshmi Pujan has to happen on the Amavasya when the Tithi is Amavasya, but it also must happen when it is the evening time at any specific location, such as Varanasi. Now, what is happening here? That day it so happens that the Chaturdashi Tithi is ending at 5:27 p.m. So, Amavasya as a Tithi begins, global Tithi begins at 5:27. And if the Varanasi folks do not perform their Lakshmi Pujan on this day, then if they wait for the next day, the Amavasya will not be there in the evening as a Tithi the next day. So even though the Tithi of the day here on 24th in Varanasi was given as Chaturdashi, they would do their Lakshmi Pujan on that same day. And some people confuse, oh, how come we are doing that? Well, that's because Chaturdashi as a Tithi, global Tithi is ending at 5:27. Okay, here, 5:27. And now the Amavasya began. So let's say folks of Varanasi, they do their evening Lakshmi Pujan 7, 8, 9 p.m. is going to happen here when it is Amavasya, that Ashwin Amavasya, and it's the evening time. So even though it's therefore you go and check in the calendar, it will say that 24th day, 24th of October, it will say Naraka Chaturdashi, Lakshmi Pujan, Amavasya on the same day. So Tithi Chaturdashi, but you are doing it because Lakshmi Pujan, what are the necessary and sufficient condition? That it needs to be the Tithi of Amavasya and it needs to be the evening time at that location. And that could be only achieved by doing it in the evening on 24th of October. Okay. So that's the one. So this is that was Monday, the local Monday, Varanasi, and so on. Now, see here it says for 14, that is Chaturdashi. And then it says, look here, Lakshmi Puja, Naraka Chaturdashi, blah, 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 and many other things, Diwali Puja, and so on. Now let's come to Dallas, okay? And we will not go into why Naraka Chaturdashi and so on. So let me actually remove that, not to cause confusion. The most important thing is the Lakshmi Pujan. So in Dallas, 24th, what is happening? See, here in the morning, 7:28, when that happened, it was the Amavasya, okay? Because the Tithi, the global Tithi is Amavasya. And how long that Amavasya is continuing? As far as the local location of Dallas is concerned, it is going to continue through the evening. And in fact, it's going to continue almost until the morning, but just before the sunrise. So for Dallas, not an issue. Okay, it will be celebrated on this day. The Tithis are Amavasya, and Lakshmi Pujan can also happen whenever they want to do it in the evening. And then there will be a Muhurta consideration, which would say, oh, please do it between 7 and 9 o'clock. We'll not go into that discussion of a Muhurta, but just talking about the Tithi. So for Dallas, yeah, that's not an issue. Okay, it is started as Amavasya. That is the day of a Lakshmi Pujan, but not for Varanasi. It started as a Chaturdashi, Vadya Chaturdashi, but still they decided they have to, or whatever, they want to do the Lakshmi Pujan on the same day, because if they waited for the next day, 25th, there will be no Amavasya Tithi in the evening, because evening is also important. So what does that mean? This kind of situation occurred because while Tithi is determined by the Tithi at the time of sunrise, like such as said Diwali celebration, but specifically Diwali Lakshmi Pujan, it must occur when the global Tithi is Amavasya. So that's a sufficient condition. And the local time must be the evening, because that is a pratha. We are talking of a tradition. Okay, we are not going to go into technicalities. I don't know what it is. But the necessary condition is that it has to be evening. And also the other condition is that sufficient, but also you can consider necessary, is that it has to be Amavasya. Amavasya at the time of the evening. And therefore, you will see this. Okay. Now, quickly, I want to go over Kshaya and Vruddhi Tithi. Should be very easy. Notice what I said. For this thing, for moon to separate from the sun by 12 degrees or a multiples of 12 degrees, on an average, it does happen within a day. That's why that Tithi can be used as a lunar day. But that's like for a ordinary folks in a ordinary language. Yeah, every day Tithi changes. But once you get into the nuances of it, you realize that that's not correct, because sun and moon, we have to adjust to them. They are not going to adjust to us. But sun is considered the eye, the eye of a Bhagwan. Same thing with the moon. They are a vibhutis. Okay. Nakshatranam aham Shashi, Adityanam aham Vishnu, so those are the vibhutis of Bhagwan here. We have to adjust to them, not they adjusting to us. But in general, what we do is we make the Parama Tattva, we want it to adjust to us. Okay, but that's a different subject. Now, what happens is, as I said, the separation of 12 degrees or multiples of 12 degrees, on an average one day, but in reality, it can happen as fast as 19 hours and again some minutes, or it can happen as late as 26 hours and some minutes for that 12-degree additional 12-degree change. When that happens, some interesting things can happen. Again, I want to take example from right this month of December, but slightly going backward to the beginning of it. On 4th of December, and if you are wondering like 0412, remember in India, this is a Druk Panchang, an Indian application. You will see the date is written first, then the month, and then the year. In America, we will write the month and the date and the year. So just making it clear. So the 0412 is 4th December. Okay. So what happened? 6:29 is the sunrise, and the Tithi was a Dwadashi Tithi. Okay. And this Dwadashi Tithi is going to actually go long all the way to 5:57. Literally it is going there, almost like to the next sunrise, just short of next sunrise. Just keep that in mind. Okay. So what happens is, this is for Varanasi, of course. Okay. So 6:29. So the Dwadashi is the Tithi. Now, I'm not taking you to Dallas. I'm just showing this for Varanasi, and you can do the same thing for Dallas. What happens is, the next day you go, okay, and this is what? Next day, 5th. And just on the border, remember, but yeah, the previous Tithi was over. And when at the sunrise, the new Tithi had already began, the global Tithi. So the day is Trayodashi. So now what happens? This Trayodashi that has began is actually going through the whole night and into the next sunrise. So on this day, when the sunrise occurred, 6:29, the global Tithi was Trayodashi, but something else. We are going to go to the next day. When the next day's sunrise happened on the 6th of December in Varanasi, the global Tithi was still Trayodashi. In fact, look at the timing. The sunrise is 6:30, and the Trayodashi was there until 6:47, that additional 17 minutes. So, in effect, what happened is, on the 5th of December in Varanasi, the Tithi is Trayodashi. And on the 6th of December in Varanasi, Tithi is also Trayodashi. So essentially, like Trayodashi as a Tithi for 2 consecutive days. This is what we call Vruddhi. Vruddhi, that is to say, growth or extension in Tithi. That can happen. This is done for very ingenious reason. I'm not going to go into that. Again, you would have to attend my course whenever that course is ready on the Introduction to Indian Astronomy and Indian lunisolar calendar. But there is a absolutely ingenious and a fascinating aspect why these rules were made. I'm not going to go into that. Okay. But this is called Vruddhi Tithi. Quickly, Kshaya Tithi. If you understood that for 2 consecutive days, we can have the same Tithi, and remember, the duration for a separation of distance of 12 degrees or multiples of 12 degrees between the moon and the sun can take anywhere from 19 hours to 26 hours. There it was more close to 26 hours, the Trayodashi lasting for 26 hours. Therefore, it was there at the sunrise in Varanasi on the previous day and also on the next day. you can have a exactly opposite of that situation, and then we can have a Kshaya Tithi. I want to give you a quick example of that. Just like, remember, instead of 26 hours for 12-degree additional change, you can have that change occur in 19 hours, which means what? You will see exactly what happens here. So on, again, Varanasi, 25th of December, very easy for you to check. I mean, people who may be watching this, 25th of December, right? In Varanasi, at the time of sunrise, 6:41, Dvitiya was the Tithi. Okay, Ditya was the Tithi. And then what happens? It actually lasted for additional 2 hours there, it's a global wise, as per the local Varanasi time. So that's there here. See, that's what it's showing. Like, so morning sunrise, that is a Dvitiya, and it ended here at 8:24. Now something interesting. Okay, so that's like the whole day continues. But the Tritiya was so such that the Tritiya, like the third multiple of 12, the moon was running faster. You can think of that like that. Moon was running faster. Okay, so that it traveled that additional 12 degrees so fast that look what is happening before the next day's sunrise. Okay, this is a sunset, by the way, so don't confuse with that. So this is a sunrise. Okay, and this is a sunrise. Before the next sunrise occurred, not only that the Dvitiya was over, but the entire Tritiya was over, and the next Tithi had begun. Remember, Tithi is global. So 25th, this is Dvitiya, but if you go to 26th, which is just the next day, at the time of sunrise, it was not Tritiya, not the next Tithi, but it skipped one Tithi, because the entire Tritiya, that additional 12 degrees of change, already occurred in a much shorter period of time, in a very short period of time, such that when the next day sunrise happened in Varanasi, it's already another Tithi, like Chaturthi. In short, by the way, I think this may be my last slide. In short, that is called a Kshaya Tithi. The way the Indian lunisolar calendar is designed, it's like a perfection beyond imagination. And of course, still it needs a periodic corrections, by the way, because I don't want people to take it in a very snob value, a very dogmatic one. Our calendar is perfect. Well, our calendar is perfect because it has been kept perfect. There are rules to keep it perfect. It just doesn't happen by itself. Okay. So unless people understand it, don't be just snobby and think like just, like Hindi mein chhati pit ke, just keep on saying our calendar is perfect. Understand what kind of ingenuity, what kind of corrections are required, why everyone need to understand this calendar. Not just leave it to few experts, because you know what, expert fallacy comes into the picture. If it falls into the hands of babus, sarkari babus, what will you do? In fact, that has happened. I will talk, Aditya, I will talk about another time, the Rashtriya calendar. I mean, they definitely try to bring the reform, but they made a mess, a royal mess out of it on a certain aspect, especially solar months. And I will talk about that another time. But for today, this is done. Anyways, while I work on my course on the introduction to Indian calendar and the Indian lunisolar calendar or Indian astronomy, uh, definitely go and look at these books if you have not yet. Even if you find them difficult, start reading, guys. Okay, nothing is easy. Even if you take Bhagavad Gita, Aditya, that happens. Like we say, oh, Bhagavad Gita is a very simple, why it is done, or Naneshwari, that Naneshwar writing commentary on Bhagavad Gita so that people understand. And people say, oh, Naneshwari is even more complicated. And in a way, they are right. More complicated, more deeper than even the Bhagavad Gita. So nothing is easy. So when somebody reads the book and says, oh, I found it tough, guys, I'm not saying you're wrong. You are right, but it is tough for a reason. Okay, just like something very sophisticated, like everybody drives a car, everybody drives a bicycle, everybody walks, but not everybody flies a plane. It's more complicated, more difficult, but therefore more powerful. Okay, more sophisticated. Same thing applies to this. So definitely consider the books if you are interested. And Aditya, with that, back to you.
So in the entire thing, I was listening very attentively, and I will do the course, so I will join you. I should be part of the first batch, because I don't understand anything about stars. I'm very honest. When I read them, I skip it because I just don't find any interest there. I need to learn it.
Yeah, yeah, but you
Others,
have a shraddha. You take it. So that is, see, if you have a Shraddha, it works, right? And Shraddhavan labate jnanam. If the
Because of
Shraddha
you,
is
I bought
there,
the telescope
what is it? That's what you bought the telescope, right? Correct.
to see
That's why
Vega,
you
to
bought
see
the,
Vega, to see other stars. So I've been
yeah,
watching them very intensely. So
yeah.
one question comes in, like
Hmm.
the Bhagavatam's description about everything is very different. Mahabharata description is different,
Yeah,
like in terms of distances of different planetary systems or planets
yeah,
altogether.
yeah.
First of all, the Vedic science assumes that there is only one Surya and one Chandra.
Hmm.
And the modern science says there are many
Hmm.
stars. They're not able to prove it, but they maintain it.
Yeah.
So for people who are going through that thing, discrepancy right there, that one
Like
son or one.
astronomy descriptions of Bhagavata, right? You mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
astronomy is Bhagavata and also Mahabharata also. Only one
Yeah,
sun
yeah.
is mentioned
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So how do they? Obviously, I always say that Naiti. First, you reject all the Western descriptions
Hmm.
and just study the from the Indian Panchang point of
Hmm.
view. What is
Hmm.
the position of the stars in Nachatra?
Hmm.
But the all the softwares are designed around Western names.
Yeah.
So how do people begin there?
Okay. I will take this opportunity to tell you something else also related, exactly related to this. Um, for example, the software actually does a good job. It allows you to um, customize. Mine is not connected, but you would have seen it. We can do another session, Aditya ji, like how to take a Western software and turn it for ourselves. I will not do it today because our session is already a long one. uh, so for example, Aldabaran, okay, which is Rohini, the yoga tara of a Rohini nakshatra. So in the Western simulation software, it will say Aldabaran. So what you do is you click on this. I mean, not every software will allow you to do that, but Karina Soft is phenomenal. So say Voyager. So you able to label that with something else. Otherwise, it will say Aldebaran, and it will still continue to say Aldebaran. Like if you just highlight on it, but you can label it and saying Rohini. Okay, so some knowledge is required, but it can be done. But something else I want to mention, I thought you were going in that direction. For example, if you look at Richard Thompson, like Sadaputta Das, and a few others, and even I don't know where the project stands right now in the Hare Krishna movement to create that planetarium in Mayapur and so on. I went 30 years ago and the plans were on, that time. And I have talked to Sadaputta Das again. That will be a long subject, so I will not go there. As to the certain model, he tried to recreate the model, and many people have done that. The way it is explained in Bhagavad Puran, and people think, oh yeah, that's a flat Earth model or flat universe model or something else. I don't mind getting into controversy. This is very much my area, but no, it's not a flat universe model. It is a misunderstood. Not Bhagavatam has not done any problem. It is a misunderstood by people, or it is a problem sometimes with the language. And I'm going to give you an example of that. The great individual, I was also frustrated with this, and the great individual who helped me understand, not like a direct one-on-one conversation, but through his writings. You may know this individual. He is a retired IPS officer. He is based in Jagannath Puri, that area, Katak, Bhubaneswar, Arun Upadhyay ji. Okay. And upfront, let me also mention that there are many things that I do not agree with what Arun Upadhyay ji says, especially when it comes to Mahabharata, Ramayana. In fact, I would say they are utterly false, decisively false. I have no problem saying that. But that is not to confuse with his greatness. I mean, he's just an amazing individual, has written a lot of things, has deeper insights, and wonderful person. What that one thing I want to tell you is that, for example, remember how if when we went to school, we had this atlas, for the world. Okay, and what happens? That world atlas is in the rolled form, if you remember, like a totally like a pipe, And in fact, it would be rolled and put it into a tube so that it's protected. Now, when the teacher brought it to the classroom, now teacher, he, she would spread it up, and it might be stapled on the four sides when we are studying it, or it may come down from the rope, and then again it is rolled back and so on. In similar fashion, if you look at the maps used by ancient seafarers, the navigation, the captains on the boats in the ancient times, Vedic times and others, and India times, the Chol kingdom and the Kalinga kingdom, and Shivaji Maharaj, his navy and so on, and even West. What you will find is the maps were just like our old type envelope, or even the new envelopes. What happens? Envelope is what? A plain paper like this, something like this. But then you are folding and putting a glue so that it becomes an envelope where you can put something inside. So to keep it sort of in a shorter form, so what they did is, this is Arun Upadhyay's explanation I'm giving, by the way. So when you want to use the full map, you open one petal here. And the word used is like a petal, like, like a flower ka, what you call, I don't know what's the Sanskrit word for that. It's like flower, like, blooming an individual petal in English, right? So you open one side here, one side here, one side here, one side here, and now you have a full map. Now, many times, say for example, if you look at the Sanjaya's description to Dhritarashtra, okay, now in one place he's describing the celestial map, in other place he's describing the terrestrial map, like Harivarsha and this and that. So that is like you're opening it center, and then now to the north you're opening this petal, like extending your map, like there is additional area there. So think of this central as the Jambudvipa. We had a Jambu talk this morning. Jambudvipa, Bharatavarsha, let's say, or I mean, let's not even confuse that, whatever it is. And you say to the north of Jambudvipa. So when you want to talk to the north of Jambudvipa, you open that petal of the map. So that also tells you that all the printing technology, printing in the sense like composing technology, and on the paper and writing, everything existed 7,500 years ago for sure, and definitely in the much older times. But this description is from Mahabharata. Then you open the other petal on the east side, then you open the petal on the south side, and then you open the petal on the west side. Now this language, when it was written in Mahabharata also, sometimes it's not in the detail. See, for example, if it's why write in the detail? If you and me know the maps, it's like saying today, hey, okay, where do I check? Like before this, suppose you send me one message. It says, hey, I just sent you the message to you. You said, and of course I said, because now there are so many options. I said on WhatsApp, and you said, yeah, WhatsApp. Suppose you wouldn't have said it, it's almost given that mostly you and me communicate on a WhatsApp. So yeah, I should go to, you say, hey, I sent you a message. So I go to WhatsApp and I look at it. But the whole fact or whole act that you, or details that you send to me, where? Is it by a snail mail? Is it by a email? Is it like some telepathy? No, just we have a context. So when you said you sent me, it's kind of natural that I should go and WhatsApp. But that discussion, if I wouldn't have asked, that discussion would not have happened. Still, the communication would have taken place. Something like this, Aditya has happened with the Mahabharata, or also happened with the Bhagavad Puran. Because to them, when they're discussing at that time, it's well known. Like, for example, if we say, just going back not that long ago, like 20 years, 25 years, and we say, hey, which smartphone do you use? What do you think the guys or whoever we are talking is going to say? Only 20, 30 years ago. He said, smartphone, now what is that? So the technology change, and therefore sometimes it creates a communication. Okay, so that's what I'm. So I have talked this with the Sadaputa, by the way. When he was there, Rasraj Das also, Ravi Gomatam also have talked about it. In terms of this model. Not that there was a resolution, but my point is there are many such things that we need to understand.
Thank you so much, Nilesh and for all the viewers for watching. And do like, share, subscribe. Let us know your feedback. And by the way, today is the winter solstice day tomorrow. So just enjoy winter solstice and enjoy your day. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaskar.